A couple of days ago, we all get the tweet out of nowhere that the Cavs are acquiring Donovan Mitchell in the trade. And then we don't know what the trade is going to be. Everyone's like refreshing Twitter, trying to see what's going to happen, what's going on. Then it turns out we find out it's for some picks, for some pick swaps. Laurie Marketing's involved, Colin Sexton's involved, and the rookie that the Cavs had just drafted. I want to talk about the Jazz side first, just to get that out the way, and then we're going to talk about the Cavs. For the Jazz, I like the move a lot. The writing was on the wall. It's clear that they were going to eventually trade Donovan Mitchell. So many people thought it was going to be to the Knicks. We all, be honest, thought it was going to be to the Knicks. The Knicks gave that ultimatum. The Jazz didn't trade him in time. They go ahead and sign RJ Barrett. The Knicks are going in their own direction. Maybe we'll talk about them in another video. But the Jazz have went to clear rebuild mode. They have a ton of draft picks. I want to say they have like 15 in the next 7 years. And they have the opportunity to get more picks because they still have Bogdanovich that they can trade. They still have Mike Conley that they can trade. And honestly, if they want to, they really could trade Colin Sexton because he has a favorable contract and we know he's nice. I do want to compare the OKC rebuild to the what's currently happening with the Utah Jazz because if I'm not mistaken, they do have the same amount of draft picks over the next couple of years, but the rebuilds are in different stages. I'll be honest, I like OKC's rebuild a little bit better, but that's also because they've been doing it for a little bit longer, and they already have some young guys that can build around SGA, Giddy, Dort, Poku, and even Chet Holmgren. We know we're not going to see him this year, but I'm curious to see what he'll look like when he does play next year. The Jazz, on the other hand, while they have a bunch of picks, by the time they're done gutting their roster, if they do decide to keep Colin Sexton, I guess he's the young name that you're excited to build around. You'll still have Jared Vanderbilt. But if they decide to move off of Sexton, it'll just be a bunch of picks and a really bad roster, which I guess isn't a bad thing if your goal is to tank and get a high draft pick. Now, moving on from the Jazz, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. To me, the trade was genius. Did you have to give up a lot of picks? Yes. The Jazz wanted picks. They were only going to give up their guys for a lot of picks. That was understood. However, if you're the Cavs, your goal is to be a playoff team for, the foreseeable future over the next multiple years. Those picks weren't really going to be worth much anyway. So let's get off of those picks because we believe in Mobley, we believe in Allen, we believe in Garland, and we believe now in Donovan Mitchell. That core four should be enough to make sure that those picks don't matter regardless. At least that's the hope if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. Another big thing that this does for the Cavs is, while I love the Cleveland Cavaliers defense, the defensive backfield of Mobley and Allen was unstoppable, to be honest with you, but they struggled a bit offensively. All the offense had to be created by Darius Garland. Now you add Donovan Mitchell, a guy who's helped lead his team to top 10 offenses in the last 3 years, 2 of which were top 5. Donovan Mitchell is someone who can play alongside of Darius Garland, maybe take the ball out of his hands sometimes. Think of a little bit of the Jalen Brunson, Luka Doncic pairing. It could be a little bit like that. Not exactly, but that's what I'm envisioning. I will admit I do have some reservations, very similar to the Atlanta Hawks situation with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young pairing up. 2 ball-dominant guys, just like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I'm curious to see how well they share the ball together. The big difference for me personally, though, from the Hawks situation is both of the Cavs guys can shoot the ball. So if it does happen where it's a kick out, they can catch and just let it fly. That's why I'm so iffy about the Hawks, because DeJounte Murray's not a great shooter. I know that's not what we're talking about, but since I brought up the comparison, I wanted to give the full comparison. Now, one of the biggest impacts this trade has is playoff positioning in the Eastern Conference. Before the trade happened, I had the Cavs as probably going to be a 5-6 seed, might, and big word, might have to fight in the play-in spot at the 7 seed, but I didn't see him having to be, 8, 9, 10, anything like that. I saw him in the 7 to 5 range. Now, with this trade, to me, it solidifies them as a team that's, one, not going to have to be in the play-in. I've already said it puts them on the same tier as teams like the Sixers, the Heat, and even the Nets. Yes, I'm not high on the Nets. We can talk about that later. But that puts them anywhere from like the 3 seed to the 5, 6 seed. Like, I see them as a team that's not going to have to worry about the play-in. They're solidified playoff lock. To me, that means there's going to be a couple of really disappointed teams in the Eastern Conference. I've been seeing this graphic going around showcasing how talented the Eastern Conference is, and it shows 8 teams I think most people would expect: the Bucks, the Celtics, the Heat, the Sixers, the Nets, the Cavs, the Hawks, and Chicago. Basically showing off that the Eastern Conference is stacked. I saw this and immediately thought, wait, how'd you forget about the Raptors? Where are the Raptors? And then, to be truthful with you, I thought about the Knicks for a second. They didn't make that move for Jalen Brunson. I'm sure they're hoping to make the playoffs, or at least to play in. I thought about the Wizards, who, with the healthy Bradley Beal and the healthy Porzingis, should be at least in the play-in conversation. And even if you take away the Wizards and you take away the Knicks, because let's be honest, at the most, they're probably just going to be a play-in, you can make a solid list of 9 teams who all have true playoff aspirations. So I put a poll out on my Instagram stories because initially I thought, okay, so it's going to be either the Hawks or the Raptors, who don't make the playoffs. And admittedly, I was surprised at the poll. 41% said the Raptors, 37% said the Hawks, and 19% said other. Because I'll be honest, initially I was thinking the Hawks probably would be the team that won't make the playoffs, because I really do have some reservations about that backcourt of DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. But then I thought about it a little bit longer and I said, wait a minute, Lonzo's not even playing to start the season. We don't know how long he's going to be out. We know the Bulls really do need his playmaking and defense on that perimeter, and did struggle a little bit without him. Of course, when he was out, Caruso was also out, so their backcourt defense was basically non-existent. But with Lonzo being out, they're missing his shooting, they're missing his defense, they're missing his playmaking. I really think the Bulls could end up being the team that missed the playoffs this year, which would be absolutely insane. Now, am I hesitant on that, saying that? Yes. It really does depend how long Lonzo is out, because I just called Zach LaVine the third or fourth best shooting guard in the league. But regardless of who you think is going to miss, and by the way, let me know down in the comments who you think is going to miss the playoffs. The craziest part is a lot of these teams in the Eastern Conference have made a lot of moves. Well, maybe not a lot, but have made moves to get better. The Cavs just made some moves. The Hawks added DeJounte Murray. The Bulls didn't necessarily make a move to get better, but they did double down on Zach LaVine. The only team to me that really didn't do anything crazy that I think should have is the Miami Heat, but I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs, to be honest with you. But to wrap this up nicely, the Cavaliers made a really, really good move. The only actual rotation guy you're losing is Lauri Markkanen. I like this game a lot, but I'm okay with losing him to add what Donovan Mitchell brings. What do you think is the Cavs ceiling with adding Donovan Mitchell? Who do you think will miss the playoffs? And this just came to me, but with the thought of a team's missing the playoffs, and that's a conversation in of itself, I think an even bigger conversation is a lot of these teams have at least second round, if not conference finals aspirations. It's going to be a lot of disappointed fan bases, but it's going to make up for a lot of good basketball to watch, because this honestly might be the most competitive Eastern Conference I've probably seen in my lifetime.